Good morning, everyone. Welcome to one of the first sessions of TLMS 2020. My name is Stuart Hayes. I'll be your MC today. We can decide later if that's a good or a bad thing. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing, and I'm going to do my best to work on my Finnish here, Jaakko Lempinen, who works with Yle, a Finnish public broadcaster. Jaakko and I were just connecting before we started, and I was saying how I was pretty much the idea of anything with the word Netflix in it generates interest when it comes to data and how to link that into sort of customer experience and behavior. So I'm certainly really interested in this and how they're kind of, in his words or in the Copic's words, out the only streaming service beating out Netflix. I want to understand what that means, certainly from a customer experience standpoint, which is what Jaakko's role is over at Yle, is head of customer experience. Certainly want to understand the customer experience metrics, but certainly a lot of the other data. He's got about 10 plus years, actually pushing 20, I should say, in data and advanced analytics. He's a strong follower of the media industry for both commercial and public media. And I was doing a little bit of research in 2008. In his words, he saw the lights when he took his keen interest and experience as it pertains to technology. A few years later, he saw his role evolving into understanding customers and behavior through artificial intelligence and machine learning. Certainly a passion and interest of mine. Looking forward to it. Jaakko, please, over to you. Looking forward to what you have to teach us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Stuart. I'm going to just jump into my presentation. Great to be here. Great to be sharing our experiences and from Finland. It's a little long way from Toronto, but at least internet brought us together. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit of our kind of like strategy, how we are approaching the streaming service business here in Finland, and why we consider ourselves. Also gonna show you a little data why we think we are the only ones. No, actually we're not. We just don't think. We actually kind of like know we are still at least beating out Netflix here in Finland, and I actually haven't heard in anywhere else in the world that there would be one that also does the same. But yeah, straight to the presentation. A little background. Stuart just told me a little bit. Few more about things about me. I used to work in the startup business before turning into media business. That was like approximately 13 years ago. Worked for commercial part before joining Yle, Finnish public broadcaster 4 years ago, and has been working with the data and AI solutions, mostly creating better customer experience with it, just not playing around with data and AI only. Also, if you ever want to learn Finnish and understand crazy bad humor about beer and analytics, we also host Notoriously Unknown podcast for that purpose. Few words if you don't know anything about Finland or Finnish public broadcaster. Finland is a population of 5.5 million people. Yle, we reach out for 96% of the population altogether weekly. We have TV channels, radio channels, but you know, we are in the same media business like everyone else in the world at the moment. We are battling all the time of the focus and the time that people have, and we're doing that obviously by our traditional broadcast channels, but lately especially with our web services, Arena, which is the streaming service, and also we have a current affairs sports news service called Yle.fi, mostly focused on that part. Then on top of that, we also have some solutions for special interest groups, but that kind of gives you an holistic understanding of our company. So we kind of do a lot of stuff, but there are a few things where we really try to do well. One of the things we do quite well is our streaming service, Yle Arena. It's the most valued digital brand in Finland this year as well, 2020. Also most downloaded mobile app in Finland. And we are just reaching 1 billion stream starts this year with our streaming service. That's kind of like, I don't know if that number sounds high for you guys, But if you consider that there is only 5.5 million people living in Finland, so that's it's only for Finnish people to serve. So that's kind of like a big number for us. So I'm going to talk about two things today. Why focus on personal media experience, how to benefit from it, and then I'm going to talk about Areena. So if this is okay for everyone, then let's move on. Why do we care about personal media experience? So first of all, this kind of, the famous Jeff Bezos things, yesterday's wow quickly becomes today's ordinary. That's kind of the stuff for us, what we consider also all the time, that if your company cannot reinvent itself all the time, and if it doesn't can like always get a little bit better every day, so then it kind of like starts to fade away eventually. So that's something what we're all the time considering, how to create new culture within our company that develops. The second part is in media sector, the definition of success is rapidly changing. So now everybody's still kind of like talking about Netflix. Now we are seeing, at least in Finland, Disney Plus is getting all the time bigger. HBO, I don't know what they're doing. They're always but we see all the time new players coming in the market, and if you only try to be the biggest, maybe that's not the way to be the most successful. So that's really important to understand. You have to understand what success actually means in media business, and also finding the balance. How do we transform the time people choose to spend it with us into something really valuable? And that's kind of like the constant battle for us. What should change in the media? I think a lot of media companies are in the same position like we were a few years ago, 5-6 years ago. So we started to like really think about like how to put content design and tech skills together, and we did the same thing like everyone else does, so that we kind of like put the design and the tech skills together and thought that, okay, we have the content there, and then we have this beautiful user experience, and now everybody can enjoy it. And obviously that doesn't work. So what happened was that we started to consider, in the beginning of a few years ago, we started to consider the content also a crucial part of, or critical part of, the whole media experience environment or ecosystem what we try to create. So that means like dynamic content, social presence, story formats, recommendations, and such. Those are really critical part of the content, and content is not something that comes from the heaven to us, but it's something we need to kind of evolve and develop at the same time as we are developing these new AI skills or machine learning skills within our services, and obviously thinking all the time the design, how do we give the content to people. So yes, I'm going to show you just a few things what we are working with. If you find any of these interesting, please do contact me. We can talk a little bit more about them. But if you think about the user experience part, we're doing a lot of recommendation system, both to our streaming service, but also that our journalistic part. We're developing new kind of application notifications, like to our news app, Uutisvahti, and also and the other part, if we think about how AI loves content and what can we work with content, there's a lot of stuff what we're doing at the moment, and that's something what we're focusing at the moment, especially how do we help journalistic people or content creators to become better content creators. Also things what we do in a marketing part, that's really, really important part for us as well. We need to get people understand what we have, what is in our service, how do we can present our content to the users, as well as we need to communicate the results better to our own people. We have to create new ways of operationalization, recommendation. How does journalistic people understand how recommendations, for example, work? What should we learn about recommendations and such? As well as there's also the customer experience part. We need to communicate better to users. Why do we recommend? What we recommend to them? Why do we create this kind of content that we have? as well as we need to communicate the same things to our own people. What kind of data tools do you need to do your work better, or to help to do your work better, if you so choose? So this is something what we've learned about organizing AI development within our company during the last 6 years, five to 6 years. So everything starts from chaos. Like someone comes to your company and says, okay, you need to do recommendation systems. And that was the same thing for us. We kind of like someone just started to do it, and then we kind of like, where should we do this? And at some point, then we moved to, okay, we need to put everything centralized to some one team, that they do everything for everyone. And then what happened was that we couldn't recruit people because the backlogs were huge, and we couldn't operate, put things to production because the team was all the time kind of like struggling under the pressure of all the things that they couldn't do. So we kind of moved along to decentralizing of the whole team. The teams were working within the business units, and obviously what happened then was that we didn't share learnings, we didn't share any ideas, and eventually there was also something that happened with the data quality issues, that people didn't communicate better with each other. So then we went to hybrid model, and this is where we are at the moment. And that's kind of the idea that we're working in a part centralized, we are sharing learnings, we are sharing models, we are sharing data sets as well. At the same time, when we are working with the business units to do the actual development and find the value for the models. But what we've learned also is that in the end, we are on our way back to chaos, because things are getting, it's always kind of like a circle of life, that when something's working really well, we are now facing like new kind of questions to our development teams. And that's something what we are now at the moment thinking, that maybe the only thing what we need to embrace in this picture is the idea that it's constantly changing. So we shouldn't be organizing everything, we need to embrace the change. And how we do it all, obviously, is that all of our development is done in a lean and agile way. And this is something that always creates a little discussion, that can it be done in such a way? But for us at least, it has been working really well for the few last years. So everything is transparent. Everyone can join in, jump in. Everyone can ask questions about what we are doing, how should we work with these things, and so on. And this is something that you need to put all at the same time to the same kind of picture, that you understand that it's not only about creating great models, but it's also changing ways editorial people are working, or people who work with content, how they're working. You need to change their work as well at the same time. So they need to be invited to the same processes as where you are working at the moment. So the culture is really, really important for us. And that's something that helps us to develop our own processes. The next part is that, what does success look like for us? So I think this is, everyone who works with the media industry, this is quite familiar data. So the TV is the blue line and the digital is the red line. 2 and almost 3 years ago, our digital services, they surpassed our TV reach among younger audiences. So this graph is only about the under 45-year-old people. And that's kind of like, if your success looks like this, then you kind of like, you don't know anything. And that's because both lines tell different story. They tell you obviously that your digital reach is better than your TV reach or broadcast reach, but it doesn't tell you like, where does the actual usage come from, who are the users, why do they use, what are their motivations and such. So and especially when it comes to the digital world, because when this is kind of like typical, and everybody always waits for kind of like it's circulating back to the things that happened 1 year ago, and see like what happened like year by year comparison. Like if you want to predict or Mariah Carey, All I Want for a Christmas song, you kind of like from the 2004, you can predict that, okay, here we go again. And now it's starting to come back again. If you just look for Google ad search, or Google keyword search numbers, and you can see that the trend is coming up. And this is kind of like typical if you're working in the business where everything happens yearly. But that's not the case in a digital world. Like for example, good example for us is the whole thinking of the living room. Media was only about the mobile for so many years, but now during COVID times, we are actually one of the biggest changes is our smart TV usage. And now again, if you only consider smart TVs to be platforms for streaming content, video content, you're completely wrong. Because at the moment in Finland, for example, Spotify is in number 10 on the most used applications in a smart TV environment. So people don't use smart TVs anymore to view only videos. They use it also to stream audio content. And that's kind of like a really interesting part because there's two changes going on at the same time. So people are moving from a broadcast TV to like streaming service usage, and actually from video content to audio content. And that's kind of, these are the things you need to understand at the same time when you try to understand what's actually happening in people's head. And about the Netflix part, this is something what we have been following since 2015. How is Netflix doing? How are we doing at the same time? This is also under 45 years old in Finland. And if you compare us like with the whole population of Finland, obviously we are much more huger than Netflix. But if you just like the interesting consumer target groups, like the under 45 years old, even with those people, we are at the moment reaching more usage than the Netflix is in Finland. And the latest numbers also show that we are going to be even bigger in the future. But following numbers is really hard. There are a lot of biases that affect to us, action bias being one, another one being survivorship bias. So the other one being that you don't believe in action bias, being you don't believe in numbers, you just want to do something. And the other one being survivorship bias, that you only follow data that you have and you don't understand the data that you don't have, and then do your decisions based on that information. And that's something what we are also working at the moment really much. How do we change people thinking around numbers? And for example, our recommendation system also tries to grow diversity in the usage of the content. So we're not only promoting, or we're not only trying to promote the most used or most watched content, but we try to promote more diverse content to people so that they would find different kind of things to watch more than kind of the same thing for everyone. So that's kind of one of the biggest battles for us, what we are doing. But let's talk about the balance. Let's talk about the case Arena and what we are doing there. I'm going to tell you a little story of one development project that what we did, and that kind of like explains how things change within our organization. But as you know, all organizations are power and communication structures. So this is something where we start. And for us, it means that we need to always maximize psychological safety. So where does the ideas come from? They don't come from the bosses or committees. They come from developers and the professionals. So for us, the case study where we started up this project was Arena's front page. Quite popular page, 500,000 visits every day. Again, remember 5.5 million people in Finland, so that's a quite remarkable number. But the problem for us was that not a significant proportion of those visits didn't lead to start, especially with the problematic target groups. So we kind of like were wandering around the problem, like, okay, what should we do? And then one developer came to me and said, okay, I have this idea. We should do the artwork personalization. And as I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds really good. Let's do that. And then we went to talk to our streaming service developers and say that, okay, we want to do this. And their immediate answer was to us, no, that there's no effect of doing that. There's no use doing that. That's completely waste of time. And then we showed them that actually Netflix is doing this already. And after that, they said that, okay, yeah, you can do that as well to us. But what we didn't understand in that point was that actually, when we do this contextual banding model, we actually start to increase the amount of understanding of elements to our journalistic people as well. So this was one of our first experiments what we did in Arena, and already in here we start to see like kind of like what's the thing that actually changes. So we started to understand that, okay, males, they appreciate strong, males watching straight to your eyes, females on a certain age, they kind of like more into emotions. Younger female audiences, they go for more than strong female characters, and nobody likes middle-aged men looking to an emptiness. And that was kind of the situation for us, that okay, this was some like new kind of information we didn't ever have before, because we only did A/B tests before. So that kind of told us that if you put these four, the bottom left picture is the best because it's reached the most usage. And then you offer the same picture to everyone. And actually what happens there is that you forget a lot of different kind of target groups that would appreciate different kind of images. So for us, it means that, okay, has to be something more to investigate on this. And that's kind of led to us also start to try new experience. And when we did a lot of rounds, we did experiments after that. And that's kind of was the issue that, okay, we start to see that we can create a lot of more viewing with the only artwork personalization, but we also start to understand that almost every time the things our editorial people chooses to be the best artwork actually didn't work at all. So nine times out of 10 machines got it right. And that kind of like changed all of our whole UI design process, where we think that, okay, the people should be in a power situation in the middle, choosing what does the masses see. And that was the biggest change for us, was that actually AI should decide what people see, and people should focus mostly on creating better pictures, better content, better stories behind the system, and let machine do the most of the work in the user interface part. But for us, obviously, we had some issues. If we wanted to do more pictures for our shows, it meant a tremendous amount of work that what we should do, and actually it also meant that it would never happen. So we needed to look closer that could machines help us also create the images for TV shows. And again, this was something we started to battle with our editorial people, and first response was obviously that maybe this is not a good idea, maybe it doesn't work that well. But we were kind of like trusting it. Okay, let's see what happens, and if it works, let's see what happens after that. And kind of maybe all the stuff. In 27 minutes, you have approximately 34,000 pictures, and it's quite easy to technically filter out unusable images. They're too dark, there's movement and such. So basically our model computes stillness, luminance, and sharpness scores for every image on the film. And after that, we have the sample size of different kind of images that could work, or which like quality levels are enough good. And after that, we convert each pre-filtered image to HSV, hue, saturation, value space, and to grayscale. And from grayscale, we create image pyramids, compute histograms, and concentrate to a feature vector, so that we can start to compare images to each other, and obviously cluster images to see that we don't want to find the same images from the same parts of the show, and this kind of like helps us also to find best images from different shots or different scenes of the film. And that kind of like got us a completely new tool. We, no matter what was the length of the film, it took only 8 minutes time, and our results were really great. 2.3% more minutes to viewing. Conversion rate was 4.8. So people came to watch. They watched longer. They find more things to watch, and then they watch more diverse content. So they went into and find something else also to watch, not only the thing that they thought that they would come to watch. And this was really, really kind of like giving us more understanding. Okay, maybe there's something even more where we should look. So when we went from video scene shot to images, we thought that, okay, could we go back to the shot and scene part? And what happened there was that we have few cases on our mind. We could preview videos, marketing videos, timeline, and annotations for people to skip, for example, in the films. And this was really interesting project. As you may know, the short boundary detection, that's kind of like fixed issue in the ML world at the moment. But for us, there's a lot of issues still. What we haven't solved yet. But what we did was that we looked on the different lane to the image part, as well as we had the soundtrack on a different feature vector. And then we used the search algorithm to find kind of the most logical shots or scenes from the films. And then we tried it out. And for us, obviously, again, we could see that the conversion rate went up, and also the minutes, so that people, they actually not only started to watch, they also watched until the end of the show. And that was really interesting part for us, because it kind of like made us understand that not everything has to always be done by humans, but the machines can do a lot of stuff at the moment. And obviously for us, that if you want to personalize, for example, trailers or videos, it's not that far away anymore, but you can actually do it fairly, not necessarily fairly easy, but you can do it. And that's something what we are looking more into at the moment. But yeah, in conclusion, 3 points for us. We try to build people and teams that can perform. So it means that you can go to production, you can test stuff, you need to test stuff, because only the data gives you feedback what you should do better. Second part, create better language about success. Talk more about what does success actually look like to your teams, to your company. And then in the end, we are what we believe, we find what we go looking for, and what we predict comes to pass. That's something that it's always good to be in the mind, that what you try to do, most likely that's what you're going to get. And if you're not doing something, then you're not going to get anything. So that was my talk for today. Thanks for them who joined. And if you have any questions, I think there's a few minutes still left for you to ask them.
Wow, that great. That was wonderful, Jaakko. Thank you so much. Just had a question coming in. I'm just grabbing it. The question is, how is the hybrid staff model working? Some people in the business and some people outside of that central office. How is that hybrid staff model working is the question.
It's working, but it's not working easily at the moment. So that kind of takes more maintenance, especially on the human part, because I think it's easier when everything is structured. So then everyone knows kind of what is expected from them and so forth. So it requires much more maintenance from kind of like HR part or a competence team, or how would you like to think? So you need to have it. You cannot do it that by yourself. You need your teams around you to also work for the same idea.
Great answer.
As well. And different.
Thank you. We'll do one quick one. We'll go for a couple minutes over time. How long do you think personalized previews and trailers take to come into existing? How can we expect these personalized previews and trailers to come soon? How far away are we from this?
There's the bigger problem with because nowadays there is the issue is that usually the soundtrack starts before the image. So there is a few, for example, the scene detection part. There is a few things we haven't got to solve yet. So, for example, for us, there are things we don't know how to solve them yet. But I hope that when kind of those things, and at the same time also, how do you? It's easier to understand what is a good quality image and what is not. But not trailers. It's a different thing because you don't want to, for example, give away the plot in the trailer and so forth. So that's kind of the. So there's like quality issues inside.
Interesting. Listen, unfortunately, we are over time. I could talk with about hours on this. I probably will connect with you offline. Thank you so much for joining us, Jaakko. I hope to see you in some of the other sessions, and thank you everyone who joined us. Take care.